What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Trail Theory Podcast. I'm Brian.
I'm Alex.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Pfeiffer. And today we're going to be talking about car camping, which, ironically enough, is what we're doing right this moment. So we are out at West Branch in Northeast Ohio in Alex's lovely camper, a little more intimate than we're used to in the studio. And today let's talk about what car camping is, the difference of what we're doing today versus other things we do, and what led us to this point.
Yeehaw! We are in redneck territory, boys. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, whenever you look is a new, fancy RV or camper or tent covered in a blue tarp.
It is kind of funny being able to see like the differences of how people are. Like, we're in a pop-up camper, Alex's pop-up camper, and then you've got next to us, you've got someone that's got like $100,000 camper,
right?
And then
satellite dish,
and then someone across the street from us is in a tent with a tarp over it,
a Coleman tent from Walmart for
across the street, like it's a neighborhood, right?
It is a neighborhood.
It kind of feels like it. And I don't know about you guys, but I grew up car camping, but I didn't grow up with the mega RV stuff.
Yeah, same.
No,
like that seems like extremely excessive.
Right. I don't know. It has its place, and we've talked about this a lot. But I mean, it's right next to us. There was a pickup truck with a boat who was just here literally to wait until it was time to go fishing, and then you've got RVs next to us who are probably here for weeks, and they've got cable hookup, and you see through the window they're watching movies and stuff.
Yeah, they're watching SpongeBob in there, Like,
I mean, it's
some of the campgrounds and stuff like that are going to have water hookups. And you're going to have a bathroom. You're going to have everything.
I went into the bathroom that was over there. I took a small stroll. It's not that far away. I went in there, and they had laundry. Yeah. You could do your laundry there. They had quarter laundry there. Yeah. What?
Well, it's because, people are literally out here for weeks, and you've got all the amenities you need, and there's a lake, and you can go fish and do whatever you want.
I guess when I went car camping as a kid, like, I remember a hole in a building that I could take a deuce in, but like that was surprising to me to see that. But I guess like it's different for everybody, whatever they're comfortable with going out and enjoying nature with, right?
And that's what you're saying is like there are some people who are comfortable camping in their $100,000 pull behind trailer, or they're free gifted from their uncle, pop-up tent or whatever. What we're doing now, which is great.
And I think like for us, it's a little bit
the disparity is huge.
It's for me, it's always a little bit of a shock because what we've grown used to since we started backpacking is bringing everything with us, doing the tents, having to make sure everything you're bringing with you is very calculated and you have what you need. Versus out here, you got it's all luxury. You come out here because you want to have fun.
Oh yeah,
and
we've got lights outside to like add to the vibe. Like, we don't have that when we're backpacking. It's like we got a stove,
we've got a cast iron,
we got a real fire, we've got a cooler, we've
chairs.
Got everything, literally. We've got a heater. It's cold, and we've got a heater,
and that's great. And honestly, car camping is for me what led me into wanting to backpack, because as a child, I had that experience with my family to kind of experience a little bit of what outdoors was. I wasn't a Boy Scout. I didn't get thrown into the woods as a child, but that was kind of my introduction to being outside.
Yeah, what being in the wilderness or being out in the woods meant. Right?
I talked about it a little bit in a previous podcast as far as like how I kind of got into camping and backpacking and things like that, or just being a Boy Scout, going out with that, your troop or whatever. But it wasn't like a tent camping thing. It was you're in a facility. And that was my intro to it all until, really Pfeiffer and I started rock climbing, I guess, a little bit. Maybe not so much because like we, my wife and I, we go camping and stuff like that. We like camping, in tents and stuff. But, it wasn't until Pfeiffer and I started climbing that we would go car camp. Not exactly how we are now. We didn't have a pop-up camper. We had a tent. But we would have all the amenities we would need.
And our version of car camping was literally car camping. Because we had the car and we backed it up to what was basically a couple logs and a fire pit.
Right.
And we just everything was out of the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a traditional campground,
yeah.
national park campground.
So this is an upgrade from that. But I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because my growing up, it was if you were camping as Boy Scouts or whatever, you would have a cabin and facilities, and it was very structured and everything. It's very different than what we do now. And
yeah,
for
cabin
me,
camping versus like
bunk beds and
all,
stuff.
yeah, all
Yeah.
those things. That's a cabin.
And for
versus
me,
a place or
I actually
camper.
that was almost a other than we would do retreats and stuff, but like when I was in Boy Scouts, that was almost a turn off for me because I like my experiences quote unquote camping coming up. I didn't really have a lot of fun. It was normally just more of a chore, and it was something my dad was like, "Yeah, go do this thing."
Interesting.
Really?
And it wasn't. I didn't get a whole lot out of it. It was fun being out there with friends or whatever, but the experience of it, I could take it or leave it.
You
It
would
wasn't-
rather be
yeah.
home playing Tony Hawk?
Yeah, exactly. but
Dungeons and
obviously
Dragons.
now, and so I don't know exactly what the kicker was or where that changed. It probably was climbing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I didn't grow up with this like itch of I got to get out and do more camping. It was like, whatever. It's a thing that my dad said would be fun, and I did it, and it was okay.
When I was growing up, my dad would take us car camping, but it was in a tent. I didn't do the Boy Scout thing, but I was in a tent. We would set up the tent, and the car would be right there, and we'd have our fire and whatever. And I remember a couple things. One, I remember my dad being stressed out.
Really?
Oh yeah, I remember like I
Lot
don't
of
remember.
things.
It wasn't like the overwhelming. Like it didn't overwhelm the weekend where it was like, oh no, Dad's
There's just a
stressed.
lot of stuff
There was
that
just a
he
lot
had
of
to
stuff.
do.
And being a parent now, I get it, right? Like it's
for
like
sure.
oh,
Yeah, you want it to be perfect for your kids.
You want to,
Yeah.
dude. You
Yeah.
want that experience for your kids because my dad hunts.
Yeah.
He took me scouting before, and he's taken me hunting a handful of times. And I had that experience, but like it's tough. It's difficult for him to do that. But I remember it was definitely a tent. It was out in the tent, and I remember one time. And when you ask him now, what was it like for you having little kids out car camping? And he just says, "Oh, it was just you kids just rolling over each other and waking up in the middle of the night 12 times throughout the night. It was not a peaceful sleep. Like I think like I love sleeping in a tent. Like I'm so peaceful with I can hear nature and it's just so beautiful. But like back then when you have little kids out in a tent, it's difficult. It's
Another whole story.
It's a whole
Yeah.
different story,
Well,
and
and
I have
think
a
of
whole new appreciation for him doing that in making an effort to camp.
Make
Right,
it
and-
important to
and think of even
understand it. Yeah.
yesterday us getting here of there's 4 dads here. We all show up and it's like, okay, we got to set up. So we each have our tasks, we go do our things. And when my kids get to an age where I start taking them on things like this, it's all on, if you're the dad and you're taking your kid camping,
You gotta
all
do
of
it
that,
all.
you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
all
yeah.
that. You're,
Right.
your 6-year-old isn't going to go build a fire for you.
Nah.
So when we do this, it's kind of cool because it's, hey, I'm going to go handle the fire. Brian's going to set up whatever, and the camper's going to get set up by Al, and we got food and everything.
I'll
everyone's
say
got their
real quick,
tasks.
if your 6-year-old is going out and building a fire for you, you might have
Good
a
on you.
pyromaniac on your hands.
or you've done a really good
Navy
job.
SEAL or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a Navy SEAL. I guess there's a fine
Yeah.
line,
Your kid's,
right?
Your kid's gifted for sure.
There's a fine line.
Yeah.
He or she is going
Kid
places.
is talented. Yeah, I think for me, what you're describing is similar to my experience, right? I grew up. My dad had 30 acres in Southern Ohio, and so campground camping is even a little weird to me because I grew up camping was this private, secluded thing where it's there's no one around you, there's no campgrounds around you, you don't hear anybody, you're literally in the middle of nowhere, and you don't hear anybody. Now, campground camping is fun, but it's still different than what I grew up with. I grew up with, my dad my mom was not into the camping thing, still isn't, and my mom does all the work at, as far as cooking and meal prep at home. So I think with me, as a kid, it was me and my brothers and my dad would take us out, and it would be my mom is the primary, I guess, caretaker in air quotes of you get a Band-Aid, your mom does those kinds of things. When my dad took us out, it was it was a whole different world. Camping was we were in the Wild West. My dad was cooking. He never cooks at home.
Yeah,
my
so it was
dad was
different.
taking care of making sure we were okay. I slept on the ground with a broken shoulder one night, and everyone was like,
Oh
"Yeah,
my
we're
God.
good." My uncle who gave me the camper was like, "Yeah, it's probably just a pinched nerve." We laugh about it.
Oh my God.
It was the boys' weekend when it was like the Wild West, and then like you got home and it was like, oh, back to normal.
So Alex,
funny.
let me ask you this: so you were fortunate to grow up with that, with so much land, and you would go out and take advantage of it. But what kind of camping was it? I mean, were you guys in a camper? Were you guys in a tent? What was that experience like? Because you had so much space to be able to do whatever
it was
you
unlimited, right? And everyone's space could be like, we had multiple campgrounds on the property. So depending which campground we were at, there was like different camp spots, and everyone kind of like assumed it was usually like me, my dad, our family, couple, my uncle, my dad's best
So
friends.
they owned it with other family members?
No. My dad owned it, but like when we had a camping weekend, the same squad came.
Oh,
Like it was like
I
our
see.
group, right?
Like your family's
but,
going.
different. And so, for example, like the majority of us slept in a tent. Like it was strictly tents.
Gotcha.
And I hear, well, I'll get there in a second with this, but so there was tents. My uncle had a pop-up camper, and it was like, I think I remember his pop-up camper before this one that we're currently recording in. It was very like, even like this is a pretty basic one, which is great, and it has a sink and all that, like real simple stuff, pop-up tent. But his first one was like real basic. Like you walk into it and it was just like a platform, like just a straight up like floor, like no cabinets or anything. And then on either side it was like beds. That's all I remember. I remember sleeping in it one time. Yeah, like it's it's like the most efficient like pop-up camper. But then like so the rest of us mainly like straight up like tents. Some people, if the weather was nice, we would just like sleep out just on the cots, like just outside in the open air, watch the stars, whole deal.
Cowboy.
And then we always
Amazing.
laugh, like you talk about car camping. We always call it, my dad, my uncle, and my dad's best friend always call it the metal tent, which is the car.
That's funny.
So
That's
like
funny.
like every
The
so like
metal tent!
the metal tent, yeah. So there's still stories to this day where they're like talking about it, and it's like, oh, the one night we were out and it was getting kind of cold, and all of a sudden you heard somebody fire up the metal tent, and it's just like, oh, people got like, they did a winter camp and it was cold, and it's like, well, I'm sleeping I'm gonna fire up the car.
If there needs to be a name for this episode,
metal
I think
tent.
we found
Metal
it.
tent.
Metal
That's
tent.
great.
Well,
That's
our,
amazing.
we found out this morning our neighbors were kind of metal tenting it a
yeah,
little
and
bit.
I
They
thought
got-
about
yeah,
that. I was
it's,
like, hey man, there's metal tenting it over there. Like, no biggie. They're warm.
So when I was like 19, 20 years old, I used to go to a lot of music festivals. And I remember so these music festivals, you car camp, but they're like tightly packed. I mean, you can
Right.
see tents and cars for miles, right?
Like you don't have a spot, do you? You were just like,
No, you have a
They're
a
stacked
spot.
up like firewood.
It's not like you have a
lot.
typically in car camping situations, you have a road and then an
Right.
offshoot little asphalt square rectangle that you can sit at. And whether you have electricity or not is depends on the campground. But this was like typically it was like a field, and you just get that spot.
were there
right?
just little tags or like a little flag
Not
notifying
even-
like
barely.
this is
You
your
just
spot?
had a space.
Barely. It was just because people the line to get into these festivals is typically 3 miles long. So you just
You're
get
the
into
next
your
person,
spot.
you're
You're the
closest.
next spot, right?
You get 20 feet
So-
by 30, whatever.
Whatever.
Probably
right?
less
There's
than
no
that,
honestly, there's no standard. It's just like these are there's just a huge.
It's like tailgating.
I think
square.
what you're saying
It's
is it's a
tailgating,
shit
right?
show.
It's
Yeah.
honestly a shit show. In some places, it's a shit show. So one of the ones I remember specifically, we were car camping honestly in quotes, right? Because it's a music festival, right? And we had tents up and everything like that, and the people that you're camping next to are in your face.
Yeah.
And I remember
yeah.
one day we were in Tennessee. It was Bonnaroo. It was in Tennessee, so it was like 100 degrees in the middle of summer, and the truck next to us was the people were sleeping inside with the air conditioning and the car running the entire day. I mean, we left in the morning to go see some bands, and we came back in the evening to get some food before we went out for the night, and they were still in there
the car, just
because they were
chilling.
it was so hot, and it was the metal tent.
Yeah, they
It
didn't
was the
bring
metal
anything
tent.
else.
They didn't break out of it. Like they were in
dude.
that.
The
And I
metal,
was like,
the metal
and
tent
in my
comes with
in my eye,
creature
it was like,
comforts.
Yeah.
and believe me, the festival camping scenario is totally different than anything we've ever that we'll talk about here. But I was like, how could you spend your entire day in that,
dude?
Yeah, and I think air conditioning in the car, like enjoy what you paid for, but whatever. That's a whole different.
I think there's different
conversation and situation,
versions or tiers of like quote unquote car camping. Because I mean, there's what we're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, and there's what you and I did, what Brian and I did when we were climbing, where we take the car to Miguel's and we'd set up a tent and everything, but the car was right there. Facilities were right there. I mean, everything. We're basically living in the car, but we just happened to be sleeping in a tent.
When we were at the Red at Miguel's, like you had mentioned, Miguel's is a pizza shop,
right?
And they've got up at the like their first floor level. It's a pizza shop, and their pizza's incredible. And it's like where there's like
pizza and ginger ale.
There's like picnic tables out in like the main area and stuff.
Yeah.
They're known for ginger ale.
They sell the Ale8 ones or
Ale8 ones.
Ale8 ones,
fresh ginger ale.
And we set the tent up on the property and we had the fire, did hot dogs and whatever in the back, and we did the whole thing. But the car's right, so it's like that's I always equate car camping to that.
Yeah,
only because we have the car, we have a tent, and then. But there, we wake up and before we go out for the day, it's like, oh, let's go get a pizza from
McDonald's.
They had showers, they had a bathroom, and that's all like on the basement level and stuff like that. And it's awesome. I love that.
But
fantastic.
the reason, like, I think it's important that we're doing this episode about car camping while we're car camping because I think it's a really good base for a lot of people when it comes to the next step of backpacking, right? Like this is a lot of people, especially like, I don't know, in the Midwest. In places where their parents decided, hey, I want this to be something that's important for people, for my kids to get out and see things. Whether you're a Boy Scout, whether you do this or that, I think that was always the first step. And I know for me, and I think some of us too, it's a good stepping stone into wanting to dive into backpacking. But it's
get your feet wet.
And it starts making you think about some of the things you need to think about when you're going backpacking. Because out here, we obviously have access to way more than we would on the trail.
100%.
We're literally recording a podcast with full microphones. But
we still going to think about...
We do want to do that now when we're backpacking, so that makes sense.
The thing is, what car camping, camper camping, I guess I would call it, when Allison and I go out west, it's like you get a national park campground, you back your car in, you set your tent up. That to me is like, like car camping.
Alex, tell us about that. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so when we go out west, we do about 9 nights. We do kind of a road trip. We always call it going out west, and the west trip, if you will. And so it's 9 nights. We drive from Ohio to Indianapolis, where we drop our kids off at their grandparents', which is awesome. And then from there, we head out wherever kind of our destination. Like this year, we might go north, might go up to like Banff as the final destination.
Oh, that'd be great.
Nice.
So 2 years ago, the final destination or general destination was Grand Canyon. We did the Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, Lake Powell, and then Arches. That was the first trip. And then the second trip, which was this year, the final destination was Yosemite. We started out, we made it to Yosemite. We did Lake Tahoe. And then what else did we do? Two other places. Oh, Zion. And so it's the definition of car camping, right?
Yeah.
Drive, vehicle to campground with pad, similar to what we're in now, really.
Right.
It just happens to be in, rather than West Branch, State Park, it's in whatever, national campground, etc. And so pull car in, unload stuff, set up campground as far as like, a camp goes, a tent.
So you're just using a tent?
Right, you didn't take the camper with you on that, right?
No camper. No. So interestingly enough, and I've thought about this a number of times because my uncle who gifted me the camper has asked, and part of it, the camper, I love the camper, and it's awesome for weekends like this because that you're going to be kind of set up in one spot, right? It's a little bit of effort to set it up, to pop it up, to do all the things that take up, getting it ready for a week or a couple of days. When we go west on this specific trip, our attitude has always been, well, a tent takes like 2 minutes to set up. We spend like 2 nights max, might change in the future, but 2 to 3 nights max at a certain spot, and then we move. So it's like to set up the camper at every single spot, to drive it across country. There's just a number of factors.
So let me ask you this. So I've only done car camping where I've set up a tent, like what you were saying, how you go out west, you find a campsite, you set up your tent. what does a hookup look like? Because honestly, that's like you're speaking French to me. Like, what is a hookup as far as like a pop-up or an RV or anything like that looks like?
Good question.
What does a pop-up give you?
So, well, I mean, there's a number of things. Okay, so every campground typically has a range of options, right? Like at Zion specifically, we stayed in a tent-only area. There's RV areas. There's all sorts of like connection points that you can get. There's some with water even.
But I mean, as far as a hookup goes, is that specifically for RVs?
Yeah, in a way, like we're at a hooked up. Like our camp
now.
only. Our spot right now that we're in right now is an electric campground.
Yeah,
so we have
the
a weekend of power.
The hookup gives you power. Is that what it gives you?
Power, and I believe someone will have to call this out or whatever. But
someone in the comments needs to like be like, dude, you're
put
doing
me
this
on
all the
blast.
time. This is what a hookup does. But I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that like some where there's like you've got like the ride on mega. The fucking huge
an
thing.
RV,
like where it's you're driving it and it's monster, right?
Well, it's funny because like
you can get water to those. I believe
it's funny that you mentioned that because like we have friends that have like been in bands that have toured with like mega RVs that, and like I'm curious, is like everything self-sufficient on those? But that's a totally different story. That's
I think
totally
there's
different.
some,
but like when it comes
some
to
water, some
Yeah, I've never seen. Well, I mean, this is the extent of car camping for me. At least the most, I guess elaborate that I've ever done. But I don't know the water hookup. When I think of like RVing, car camping, or I forget what they call it in Europe, or like when they do holiday or whatever, they go take their camper out and they hook up the electric, and you've got your toilet. You could have you've got basically what we have here. We don't have a toilet in the camper, and then you have facilities for everything else, for sinks and showers. And
I think a majority of it is electric only.
I think so.
And then like RVs have water, and then they have a gray.
But
waste.
isn't that the RV
so
itself
when
and
you
not the
poop,
campground?
it goes in. Yeah, it's on the RV.
Right. You
so
take
when you
it with
poop,
you.
it goes into a container, and then you dump that.
So a full hookup, really, if you're doing a full hookup campground, is you have a sewer, so your gray water.
Oh Jesus!
Your water and electric. So
Dang.
you have
there you go.
each lot.
I didn't
Each
even
lot.
think of waste.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's gray
That
water.
was not even,
And it's not-
That's gray water.
Yeah.
They should call it brown water.
I was gonna say brown
Brown
wasn't
water.
the color they wanted.
it's-
I've never seen anything come out of my body gray.
Well, it's not just your shit
It's your dish soap, your all those
all
things.
that. So if
'Cause-
you've got water running out of
Yeah.
the spigot going into your sink, that's part of your
I
gray
guess if
water.
you mix all
basically-
that together, it turns gray.
In your
Sure.
high-end RVs and campers, right? If you poop, it flushes into a container. If
Right.
you wash the dishes, it flushes into said same container. So all of those things, your
So
shower,
at the end of the
your
day, it's
poop,
gray.
your
All
hand
right.
washing, all those things go into one bucket. It's like living
It's
a
your
house on
house.
a well, right?
But Brian, so to your point though, a full hookup is that like you actually have
you can flush
plumbing
into that.
Yeah.
at your lot. I didn't
Right.
even know that
If-
existed. That's
if-
crazy.
But you
Well,
still have to
obviously-
hook that into your gray water container.
right.
Right.
Obviously, whatever recreational vehicle you have has to have that hookup to.
Of
Correct.
course.
You're not.
Like, I don't
you're
have
not
the gray
shitting
water
into a
hookup in
tube.
this.
That's not true. You actually do.
What?
Whoa.
I saw it on the side over here.
Hold on,
You've
what?
got
So we can
he's
hook a
got
toilet
he's
up in
got a
here?
gray water runoff. I think if you had the tank, I don't know if you've got the tank or
okay,
not.
okay.
You're telling me I can shit in the sink right here?
I guess if you really wanted to.
Maybe
It'd be
we're
like
at the
a
right
it'd be like a
campground.
major waffle
But
stomp.
but you do in the side of the thing here. You have the
An
option
Yeah.
for.
I do
an
know
inlet.
that there's a water pump in the cabinet.
Yeah.
I know
I'll
I
say
could do
our
water,
gray
but it's just-
water-
there's no point.
Our gray water hookup is the tree right outside the camper right now.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, right? So we are. I mean, not all of. I'm going to use the term gray water or whatever. What did you call it? Gray. It's
gray water.
It's gray water.
Gray
yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Or the
All
gray
right, so
tank, yeah.
not all of our gray water is going into the double tree over
Well,
here.
right. Yeah, that'd be
right?
weird.
I like the term gray water because I can be really, you use it for
All-encompassing.
all
Right,
encompassing.
that's it.
You
Yeah.
can use it for anything. Disgusting.
Yeah, but I mean, so obviously we're not we're not that level of car camping right now. We have, but I'm looking at over Alex's shoulder right now at the facilities.
campground bathroom.
Yeah, so
I'm
they
really
got-
curious to find out how many of the listeners right now, when they just have a bonfire in their backyard, just pee in their yard.
Oh, well, I know all of us at this table
Well,
do that.
Comment on that because I'm curious about that
100%.
too.
Oh,
It's
this
so
table, yeah.
appropriate.
Okay,
And
okay.
it feels more Neanderthal to
But
just say, screw it.
So
I'm
let's-
outside.
let's-
We're having a fire.
I understand. I have no problem with that. I'm just curious what I've always thought.
What
Like,
are
is
the
this
numbers?
appropriate? Like, I want to hear from you people. When you have a bonfire in your backyard, is it okay for you to just take a whiz out in the backyard? I mean, I'm comfortable with it if the person I'm with is comfortable with it. You know,
I love when people pee in my yard.
you see
encourage
Alex relishes the moment. Hey,
Go
pee
ahead.
in my yard.
Save the pump.
Save the pump. I
That's
don't
a gallon,
care.
it's a gallon and a half of water.
If
that I
you want
didn't
to
have
go in
to
my
pay
house,
for.
you're more than comfortable. If you want to go out by my oak tree in the backyard, go right ahead. I'm just curious. Leave a comment.
Yeah, sure.
I'll bet the numbers are staggering.
I mean,
the amount
I would-
of people that would rather pee in the yard. Like, dude, my 5-year-old kid would love to pee. He would pee in the yard every day if I'd let him.
Your
I
kid
feel,
would.
does.
I feel like that's the question of like.
Can I pee outside?
Yeah.
No.
I feel like
we're
that's
not
the,
camping. Like literally, that's the line. That maybe that's the caveat. There is like I say to my kid when he wants to pee, when he's asked me to pee outside, I said, no, we're not camping. It's like, so if you're camping
That's
or
funny.
camping adjacent, maybe a bonfire, whatever, it like qualifies as, air quotes, we're camping. So go ahead. Like you can
What's
pee
the
outside.
danger?
Well, my 5-year-old actually was when Alex and I took the boys out for the first camping trip in this camper at this campground. The first time my kid peed outside was during camping.
at West
And
Branch.
at West Branch.
Was
And-
his eyes just lit up like, I
wow,
can't believe
he
that
just
this is
discovered
okay?
this
It's
new
so
thing.
easy.
I've been told, because that entire kid's life has been told I can pee in two places, either this pull up or in this toilet.
Right.
You're
Or in the
telling
pool.
me I can. You told your kid you can pee in the
No,
pool.
you
No,
can't
get the fuck out of here. No, your kid has been told I can pee in my pull up. I can pee in this toilet. You're telling me
You
I can
just
pee
open-
next to this tree?
You just opened the world. I can
What?
pee in the woods.
The world, because I mean that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, to a, I mean, there's
To a degree.
Then you got to bring it
Yeah,
back
the
in the
world.
woods.
All right, relax.
Anywhere out here.
I will
That's
say,
all over encompassing.
I will say it ruined him a little bit because we got home and my wife was like talking to him about, how was your trip and what'd you guys do? And he was kind of talking a little bit about it. And then we were on the deck and he literally just pulls his pants down and starts peeing right off the deck. I'm like, yeah, that's not okay to do.
Yeah, we are not
Yeah.
camping
We're
now.
not
Hey,
camping.
it's a lesson.
We're home.
Either one was a lesson or the other thing was a lesson. I think they were both a lesson.
Listen,
you
man,
know?
it was a
Right.
learning opportunity across the board.
That's so funny.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I think, we are camping right now. We're going to actually cook dinner on the fire.
Let's
I
have
think
some steaks.
we need to
Right.
take a break real quick and make sure that the fire is still good. We'll turn
Yeah.
to the fire and we'll
when
be
we
back
get
in just a
when we
sec.
get back, maybe let's talk about some of the food we're going to be doing.
Let's do it.
All right.
Hell yeah.
We're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Audimute. When we decided to do the podcast, we wanted to make sure that we were going to deliver the best sound possible. And it doesn't start with the gear, it actually starts with the room. The amazing people over at Audimute helped us design and create this incredible sounding studio. And they don't just do studios, they do commercial buildings, offices, restaurants, homes, the list goes on and on. And it's not your typical fiberglass or wedge-shaped foam on the wall. When it comes to acoustic treatment, they're in a league entirely of their own. Their products are eco-friendly and made from 100% recycled paper and cotton. And there's tons of options to choose from, whether you want a real stone look, marble, wood planks, you can even have a high-res image printed directly on the product. With all the custom colors, wood grains, shapes, and sizes, your options really are endless. We love these guys. Go check them out. You can buy directly from their website, or you can have a free room analysis done and get something completely custom. Their website is audimute.com. That's AUDIMUTE.com. Now back to the show.
And we're back. We took a look at the fire, made sure we're good. We're going to be doing some steaks later. So we wanted to lead into what we're doing for food. And I know we just had a food episode recently, which was awesome for backpacking. But with car camping,
It's different.
it is different.
Taco Bell
the
and
possibilities.
McDonald's.
The possibilities are endless. So Brian, do you want to I know you have a good dinner plan for us tonight. You want to run us through?
Tell us what you got.
We've done this once before, but it's just easy to do, and it's so freaking good. So, not for vegetarians, I guess, but we're doing some steaks over the fire, and this is a recipe that I found from, there's this dude that I follow on YouTube. His channel is Fire to Fork. So good.
Oh, we're familiar.
Yeah, and he just straight up cooks on open fire, on campfire, and the recipes are awesome. So I saw this steak recipe when we backpacked or when we car camped last year, and I'm like, we got to try this. We got to try his steak and chips, which, he's Australian, so chips are fries.
Chips.
So yeah, we're gonna be doing some steaks over the fire, and then we've got some potatoes that we'll chop up into not like small French fries. But
like it's in
Not
between
quite
a
a
wedge and
Yeah.
a fry,
Yeah.
right?
Not
Because
a
a wedge
JoJo,
is like
but-
a little bit too much potato, and a fry,
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's good over the fire in a big old pot of
yeah.
oil.
So I've got
solid.
I've got a cast iron Dutch oven that will do the fries in, and the secret for this is to get them inside soft but the outside super crispy.
Right.
And there is one key component for that, and it's starting with your oil cold. Instead of putting the oil on the fire and letting it bubble up, right? And then putting the potatoes in, you put the potatoes in cold oil, you put the cast iron Dutch oven on the fire and let it do its thing.
So
that is opposite of everything I've
Honestly.
ever known as a fry cook.
So
which
why-
I've experienced
why would
fry
that-
cook when I was in my
Yeah,
teens.
what does that make
What
a
is-
difference?
Why would you do that over putting them in a hot?
So that's how you get the fluffy cloud potato in the middle.
It keeps the middle cold while
Not cold,
not
but
cold.
it
It's
keeps
gotta
it
cook.
fluffy.
Well,
It keeps it
not
keeps it fluffy.
burning
So-
hot.
Yeah, it keeps it fluffy, and it gets the outside crispy. And then so after that's done, you can tell by the color of it that it's done, by like a golden brown color. And then you take them out, and then we're gonna spread a little Parmesan cheese on it,
Yes,
a little parsley, a little salt and pepper.
We've
My
done
mouth
this.
is watering.
Listen, I'm going to be honest. We've done this before, car camping. I've seen Brian do this before car camping. It was a huge vat of oil and a cast iron, dude.
Yeah.
And there, you put the potatoes in, and it was overflowing, and it
That was too
took
much.
forever. And I was skeptical.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not going to turn out. And then you dished out the final product, and I was pretty impressed. So I'm looking forward to what happens tonight.
So the thing that I think I made a mistake last time, and I put 3 of the vegetable oil bottles in.
What, 3?
3.
Wait, but what's a bottle? Like a bottle
I
could be
think it's
anything.
I think it's a
It's like
liter.
a quart. Oh, it's not a liter.
Dude,
maybe.
The
yeah.
cardboard cartons?
No.
No cardboard.
The plastic bottles.
Ooh,
It's like
yeah,
a full.
okay.
It's like a liter, maybe a little bit more.
So you
And
put too
so
much oil.
I put way too much oil in, and had to remove some. So I
Dude,
only
it
did
was
2.
like-
I only did 2. We might only do 1.5.
I was
Just
gonna
to
say it was a lot, and it was overflowing. And
It was overflowing.
I was
Yep.
nervous.
Yeah.
It was
And I was-
oil. Yeah, it was like a McDonald's.
I
man.
trusted you because I had never done it myself, and it turned out great. But there
Yeah.
was a point where I was like,
We're not gonna have potatoes today.
we might not have, or we might have mashed potatoes.
Right.
tonight.
Yeah,
I don't
this
know.
is not going to come
No,
out
but
right.
it was fine.
Not come out.
This is the second time doing it, so I think it'll be
think
good
learning.
though.
You
But
You know what? We've been out here for a little while. We've had our share of. It's not like we just popped up our setup and we've decided to eat now. And we've had a couple meals. What have we eaten so far, boys?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean,
Last night.
Let's start with last night, where
I
We
wasn't
made-
here.
yeah, you weren't
so
here.
You guys go ahead. I
We
was just
had-
curious of what the food.
we
what
walked
the
in.
menu's been.
We walked into last night having an idea of what we were going to make. And
we were
then
gonna cook everything on the campfire, but it was raining.
Right, it was raining.
So we shifted.
We
We
shifted
shifted.
to the. We had Alex brought a little flat top. What did we get? The Blackstone flat top. And but yeah, we were gonna do pizza burgers in the
pie
flat irons. In
irons.
the irons, right?
Yep.
Pie irons.
Wait, hold on. What
All right,
are we
let's
gonna do?
Hey, Alex, explain
Yeah,
what
so
that is.
a pizza burger in a pie iron.
A
It's
pizza
just-
burger?
Yeah.
What?
So in said camping that I grew up in doing, metal tenting, the
Pizza Hut and a Burger King burger.
Yeah, the things we always did were pizza burgers, and it's those 2 pie irons that pudgy pies. I think,
love
are what
those.
they're called.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I've had those, but
Yeah. So you open them up and basically put bread on each side, and then stuff its guts with, pizza things. So pizza sauce, cheese,
spray it
and
with the
spray it with the
butter.
the Pam, or the liquid butter, and then cook it over the fire. Simple as that.
I guess
it's
I've had those, but I've never called them that.
Well,
It's
I don't know why. It's just it was
me,
pizza
it's
burgers
for
us,
me, it was
yeah.
always quickie pies.
It's a pizza
Yeah.
uncrustable.
Quickie pies, and
Yeah,
we would do
exactly.
grilled
It's a-
cheese or
it's a
pizza
100% a pizza
or something
Uncrustable.
like that.
Yeah. So last night it was raining and we didn't have any fire, so we made the decision we would just use the Blackstone for everything. And then at the time it was okay. Well, it's kind of essentially grilled cheese, so
Right.
Yeah.
we'll make them on
Make 'em
the
like we would-
Blackstone.
yeah.
So you get it good and buttered or pammed up, and then throw the bread down, or if you have mayonnaise, you can use that on the outside. Put that down, cheese, sauce, Alfredo sauce
Pepperonis.
if you want, Alfredo, whatever, the fixins. Close it up, and then just keep flipping it until it's ready to go. And it's,
And that
it gets golden brown and, good. It's
and what was
delicious.
It was awesome.
what was wonderful
sure.
about that is that's how the evening started. So we're like we made the decision we couldn't use the campfire, and that was fine. So we didn't get the pizza Uncrustables.
So we started
But
leaning into the blacktop.
Well, we leaned
Hard.
into that. We leaned in hard to the blacktop. So we had our I'm just going to call it a pizza grilled cheese, right? I mean, it's
Pizza grilled
essentially
cheese.
what
That's
it
what it
is.
was.
Oh, it's delicious.
It's fantastic. So we each had several of those, and then
I think we each
what
had
we're
3.
what we're left with is mozzarella cheese, pepperoni,
sauce.
sauce, 2 types of sauce. We had the
we're
white
gonna
sauce
get
and
a
the red
lot
sauce.
of hate mail from New Jersey and New York right now. They're gonna be like, "What the shit are you talking about?"
And you know what? Listen, it's a different world. We're out car camping. You have limited.
We had to use.
We don't
limited
have
options.
fresh mozzarella
Yeah.
bean
No.
Right.
stewing.
I brought a wedge. I brought a wedge
Oh
of
my God.
garlic and herbs cheese.
Oh, well, there
seasoned
you
cheese.
go.
That helped.
And it was so we started experimenting a little bit.
On the top.
Yeah, and we sort of graduated into what we ended up calling a little peppy. And
Some listeners are going to be like, "This isn't chef's table. I'm out."
so. I mean, let's be honest. Little peppy is literally just
A piece of pepperoni on,
You
the,
put it on first.
on the grill
blacktop with some
cheese
cheese on it.
and mozzarella in it. But let's remember what we learned, what we thought was special, and what felt special. You start. You got your cooktop, right, and you're cooking, and we throw your pepperoni on first. Let those puppies sizzle up there and turn into little
It turns
little
into a cup.
sombreros cups. You gotta flip
The cup
them.
up a little
You
bit.
flip
Yeah.
them,
Flip
and
the
then you've got
pepperoni.
a little bowl for your goods.
Dude,
Yeah.
So then we put a little slice, a little piece of this herb and garlic cheese in there. It would melt up, kind of whatever, and be chewy and salty. And then we put just a little bit of marinara or
Yeah.
a little bit of Alfredo in that cup as well.
Yep.
And then you grab it, and it's delicious.
Dude,
And
it's like
the
half
perfect
a
bite.
It's like half a shot.
We can,
It's
of like
so
fucking
small.
Pizza.
we documented it. We can
did.
put it, we can put it in, we can put it into stories.
And the
We'll-
beauty
we'll show
of
you what it
that,
looks like.
what was
We'll share
also
that.
fun on top of that, though, is you have your surface. Like, why not just start with a little more of like a base to
Right.
support that and make it more like a taco? So we would put a little
a taco.
Yeah,
we
listen,
got
we
Mexican
did.
elements.
We
in
did.
it.
we would put a little pile of mozzarella cheese.
Yep.
And it would melt up and get crispy and
Nice and
delicious
crispy.
on one side, and then we would build our little peppy on top of that.
Yep.
And then it was like a little taco
It's like a
because
little peppy taco.
there was some sturdy and structure from the cheese. Amazing.
This is straight up hillbilly cuisine.
It was
to its
awesome.
Well,
finest,
I
right?
think that's exactly
It's
what
the-
car camping cuisine
That's
is.
what car camping is, right?
can
so
be.
It was the
exactly.
ingredients we had,
It's
and
what
we were
you
like,
have.
we're hungry. We have a hot stove right here. Let's throw some shit on it.
Yeah.
And like, it was delicious.
And every step, like we evolved each time. So we started with what we were going to plan for dinner, and we ate it. It was great. And we
Yeah.
were still hungry. And then each step of the way, it got a little bit more intricate. And it's like we started incorporating some chips.
we put chips on
I'm
it.
sorry, but this is like
It was
so hilarious to me.
fantastic.
This is outrageous.
Yeah.
But amazing. And I'm jealous. I wasn't here last night, so I didn't get to experience it. And hearing it back, it's ridiculous
It sounds
sounding.
ludicrous.
But
For sure.
honestly, at the time, like I can totally enjoy it because
Now we've learned some things.
how much
so
how
we
much
can bring this back.
how much would you kill for that on the trail?
Oh
Like
my
on
gosh.
the trail,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
like
We talked about-
we talked
Yeah.
about it in the last episode about it being a luxury to have certain things.
We talked about it this actually last night.
Yeah.
We talked about if you have your pan,
We can do
just like we
little
did,
peppies.
just like we did with the Spam,
Oh, the
frying it
Spam.
up.
Yep.
We have pepperonis, we have cheese. You can do a little peppy.
Yes. So
we
and
just
then
have to bring a little marinara
we-
sauce,
we-
which we could
Oh
do.
my God!
You
You're gonna
put-
carry marinara
Yes.
sauce
Yes.
in your.
Excuse me. You just said I'm really bummed I missed last night. You should be bummed because you missed Lil Peppies.
So
Yeah,
and
but I'm
if
not-
you were here for Lil Peppies, you'd be like, hell yeah, we can bring marinara sauce.
Yes. You
All
would
day
qu-
long, we
you
can
would
bring
not
marinara
question it.
sauce.
all you have to do is put marinara sauce into a plastic bag. And
I don't
then
even
dish it
dip
out.
my mozzarella sticks in marinara sauce. I'm not bringing it on the trail. One of you
Listen,
guys can
all right, You would.
scoop
You
it up
will.
and
I
put
will-
it in your back
You
pocket.
would.
Gladly carry a Ziploc bag.
You would just
marinara.
cut the corner, cut the
100%
with
corner.
it, yeah, like
Yeah,
basting
type
a
it out.
cake. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
You get
what
a little
we've done,
Ziploc bag. You scissor the corner and you squirt
Yes.
it
Yes.
out.
Yes,
Yes.
and
Little
this is
peppy.
where
God,
this is
100%.
last night we talked
No
about. So
way.
you sort of bridge that gap, and that's
Yeah.
why I like car camping because you get to experiment with things. You have more
Yeah.
more equipment available,
Right.
more options available. You get to experiment with things,
Yeah,
and then
who
you
cares?
find that thing that's like, oh man,
This is
how
small.
can I
This is easy to do.
How can I translate that to something on the trail,
Yeah.
and then you bring it out with you?
The only thing I've learned by car camping tonight is that I'd really like an ice cube in my whiskey rather than it being straight. That's the only thing I've learned. Can you guys figure out how to bring ice cubes out
No.
on the trail?
Yeah, it's
Because
called-
that's the
well,
best thing.
Yeah,
on the
no, it's-
Can we
trail.
talk about
It's
tonight?
It's called going in the middle of
Well,
winter.
I guess so. Yeah. Well,
True.
and we're gonna do. We're
Finding
gonna
some
definitely. We're gonna definitely do,
We'll do some
a
winter
trip
camping.
in the middle of the winter. But let me just shout out real quick. We're all having a little glass of whiskey. A shout out to Peerless, which is one of my
Yes.
favorite distilleries in Kentucky. Big fan. We're having the straight rye whiskey. Typically, though, when we go on backpacking trips, we
Single flasks.
bring
Single
a
flask?
flask. Yeah, I've brought a handful of different kinds.
It's been nice, if each of us. That's kind of, ever since the first trip, which we talked about, Dolly Sods, it's been a tradition. We didn't even really have to do anything to institute it, but we each bring a flask of whatever we're going to bring, and circle meat
Circle meat.
Circle meat.
Circle mate.
and cheese and whiskey has been on every single trip, and
Yeah.
that does not exclude car camping because we have had our share of circle meat, cheese, and whiskey.
We have.
and
Well, it's too easy to bring that on
Well,
car
right.
camping. When you do it backpacking,
a little more of a challenge.
established.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Figure it out.
you
It's an important piece.
sacrifice weight and space for those things.
Sure.
right?
Right.
I mean, but
How
that's
much do you want it?
we've talked about. Between us, we talk a lot about sacrificing weight and space for luxuries, and typically for me, because it's typically food. I sacrifice for food.
Yeah, if there's, in terms of luxury on the
opposite.
trail, if you're gonna, I'm usually making the argument of how can I make food better than anything.
We had
else.
we had this conversation last episode, but we'll continue it right now. I would love to continue this conversation
Well,
right
it's
now.
relevant
Tell
here.
us, you told me that you don't sacrifice your weight and your space for food. What do you sacrifice it for? Extra socks?
No, so I don't sacrifice it for anything. I mean, I carry my camera and all the crap that comes with that, which is heavy.
Well, which
But-
we'll have an episode about content.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a part of me that's like, I'm at a point with my pack. Every single thing in it has its place. So there's not really anything I could erase or get rid of. The only real variable at this point is, am I carrying 2 smart waters or 3? And how much food am I taking? So the water is kind of non-negotiable. The food then becomes like, if it's a decision between like, oh, should I add this extra bar or not? Like, add the bar. I'm not losing sleep. But there's a few things where I'm just like, I'm not going to add that extra food thing. I can live without that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, that's the difference between the car camping and the backpacking, though. You have to make decisions and think,
Well, your
but you're
backpack
weight
becomes
conscious and stuff like that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Your backpack
But-
on car camping is the back of the
Yeah,
trunk
so
of
it
your
doesn't-
car.
so it doesn't even
yeah,
matter.
Carry whatever you
that
want.
bag of Cheetos,
Yeah.
gone.
I mean, you
So
could put
you-
you could fit like 12 tomahawk steaks in the back of your
Yeah.
trunk. It doesn't matter.
Well,
what
and
you're
I brought.
cooking,
I
right?
walked. We had a cooler full of 54 beers that we walked into yesterday with, and we're not bringing that on the backpacking trip.
No.
But you know what?
No,
I mean,
no.
honestly, for me, when we car camp, it is. I enjoy cooking over the fire.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
do
100%.
love that.
Big time.
And I
Yes.
think for me, part of the car camping aspect of what I love so much is it's an eating trip.
Yes.
almost,
Oh, 100%.
right? So
Well,
it's like
I mean,
yeah.
so
so like,
90% of what we talked about today and what we've done today is around food.
right. I don't eat breakfast, but we had a big breakfast today.
yeah.
We had a late lunch. We had, Austin made an incredible potato soup.
Yep.
Right over the fire.
Let's
that
talk
was
about
awesome.
It. Let's talk about it.
What was in that?
When September hits, I typically
Soup
with
season?
my family, it's soup
Soup
season, right?
season,
Every
yep.
week I make a different soup. Hopefully it's a hit. If it's not, whatever. With kids, it's hard. It's hard to know whether it's going to be a hit or not. But I have this ham and potato soup that I typically like, and so I thought, hey, over the fire, I think that it would be.
It's cold outside.
It's cold outside. Like I think it would be an easy one. I had fresh thyme and celery and carrot and ham and
Bay
potato
leaves.
and bay leaves, and it turned out to be a really
It was great.
good. It was a
yummy.
good option in
It
the
was.
afternoon.
I will say there was something. I mean, the soup was amazing. Don't get me wrong. That is
This'll be good.
full stop. It was fantastic. I think what added to it is the fact that while we were doing that, while we're sitting around the fire, it happened that today might be the first day of it's the first snow I think I've seen.
It maybe was
It
the first time it
snowed.
snowed.
It snowed
today, like
So
full on
we got
actual
Yeah.
snow, and we're sitting around cooking
Wolfing down
cooking
soup.
soup
That's special, man.
around a campfire, and there's actual snow coming down, and that was like, just the picturesque car camping around a campfire could not be better.
in Northeast Ohio, we typically don't get much of fall. It's typically summer and then about 2 weeks of like mild weather, and then we get hit. But this year we've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
Where we've had about 6 weeks of fall, mild weather, and
I will say
today
this,
was the first day, which was November 12th of 2022, and we got our first snow, and it's pretty late in the season for that, but it
Yeah.
wasn't sticky snow, right?
No,
it was
it
pretty
was-
mild.
yeah.
But anyways, I think the soup hit right. It's something that I like to do in the winter, is make soups, and it hit at the right time.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not like a go-to when it comes to car camping. We're excited right now.
Oh, yeah.
Steaks.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's going to be
Right?
awesome.
So,
I'm looking
Brian,
forward to
let's
that.
let's
We're
roll,
let's be
into-
honest. Like, we're guys. We're dudes. Like, we like our steaks a certain way. It's a special thing.
large and cooked well, and preferably over a campfire, which is the intent.
It does make a
tonight.
big difference
It's
as far as how you
huge.
cook it. I really think,
I
Oh my
agree.
gosh.
I'm more of a. Now we're getting into a foodie episode.
I know.
I've turned into a person who I would rather have less steak that is cooked the way I want it than more steak that is cooked how I don't want it.
Yeah.
So like medium rare steak,
Oh.
closer to rare,
Oh yeah.
I will eat until I'm sweating meat.
Duh. Duh.
But
Okay,
if someone
100%.
if someone cooks like when I hear someone at a steak restaurant say like, yeah, medium well, I'm like, you're
Please
f***ing
leave.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like no, dude. Like
Get
I would
outta
rather
here.
not eat that. I would
Yeah.
rather eat something else than steak.
So
than
I'll
eat
go to
that.
McDonald's.
100%. So since the pandemic, I've taken a bigger role in making our meals for our family, and that was just kind of like, okay, I know that I'm going to have to be cooking more in our home rather than taking, going out to eat. And I have a lot of kids in my home, and I believe me, before the pandemic, I would burn grilled cheese. I was no cook at all. But I wanted to do a little bit more at home and start to cook a little bit more. And steak was one of those things that I always loved. But when you went to a lot of restaurants, especially if they weren't high class, it was a toss-up, right? I mean, I don't know if you've been to like Texas
it
Roadhouse
depends.
or places like
Oh,
that. It's
yeah.
like you never know what you're going to get when you
Right.
order medium rare. Because
Yeah, you got somebody in the back that's like, they got to go to high school tomorrow. Like,
Right. Well, I mean,
they're
I was
17 and smoking cigs
Right.
out in the
I
alley.
was,
Yeah, dude.
I was that guy.
those dudes don't care
was
about
the
your
guy.
experience.
I was the guy you were ordering that, that fillet from, and I
It's like, oh, forgot that was on there. Let me flip it once
So-
and throw
right.
it on the plate.
So
Like,
I
they
went
don't
through
care.
my lumps with cooking from home and trying to like cook the perfect steak. That was difficult to me. But I came to the point where like I felt confident that I could cook a steak myself better than not every restaurant, because I've been to restaurants where they've cooked phenomenal steaks, but like to the point where I felt confident that I can cook a steak.
Make a really good steak at home that you were like, holy crap, that was.
But that's at home, right?
And I think, and it's what's like what we're doing tonight. And it's not the first time we've done it, but I think that's what's fun about car camping is that you get to it. So we're approaching this from what we do typically is backpacking, and like I said earlier, we're taking out exactly what you need for that trip, because you don't want to carry more than you have to. But out here, you get to experiment with stuff. And you get to have a blacktop. And you get to make little peppies. And you get to have a campfire. And you get to make a steak. And you get to do all these things.
Little
peppies. So from that, you get to sort of carve out, all right, how can I translate this to a trail meal in a way that makes sense for backpacking?
Absolutely.
So we can, now that we did what we did last night with little peppies, we can translate that into a backpack. We will translate that into a backpack meal.
Yeah.
The steaks you're going to do tonight and the fries.
That's not something
not
we can't
quite
do.
the same.
At some point, some version of that will.
It has a ceiling.
We've graduated. We're eating Chipotle burritos on the first night of backpacking trips.
It's true.
That wasn't an option first. So, I mean, like, that's why sort of diversifying how you camp and how you go outside.
You're limited to.
It's just fun.
You're limited to the utensils and cookware at that point that you're able to bring out, right?
I agree.
Because you can't make these fries we're about to make without like a cast iron Dutch oven.
A nice pan.
And if you're going to bring a gallon of oil with you,
you're telling me you can't take a full Dutch oven sized vat of oil on the trail?
We've seen someone try.
No. Okay.
And it
if you're conscious about your weight, no. If you don't carry, you're the strongest man alive, and you want to carry a 20-pound Dutch oven cast iron, go ahead.
So I think on that, the joy of car camping, and to round this out, we did this before, if you had to pick one thing about car camping that makes it endearing or special, whatever you want to call it, or something that just is worth noting, you want to tell our listeners, car camping blank, what do you want to say? Brian, start us off.
Yeah, I'll start. I do, like I mentioned before, part of car camping to me is kind of a little bit about the food and kind of cooking some really good meals. I enjoy cooking on the fire. So for me, doing what we're about to do tonight for dinner is a big reason I love car camping. So it'd be cooking different meals that I don't get to do typically at home. Would be cooking on the fire.
Totally.
Alex?
Yeah, I think for me it's the access to opportunity of things.
options.
Yeah, right. The amount of, sitting at a campfire in a rocking, nice, comfortable camp chair versus sitting on my butt on
The ground.
a 1x1 pad.
Right.
It's very different. So it's the creature comforts, right? Maybe that's exactly what it is, the creature comforts. But you can put anything in your car. We can cook whatever we want. We can have a cooler full of whatever we like. But we're still camping.
Right.
There's still like the main components of camping, and that's what I think makes it so cool. Like we're sleeping on, like beds in a camper,
Right.
which is very different than sleeping on a pad on the ground. So it's great.
Yeah, for me, car camping is intricate to my upbringing, right? I totally, it's how I was raised. It's, my dad took us out to car camp, and even if I could tell now that it was a struggle for him, it was so important for us. And I'm going to bring up a story that makes total sense for why it was a sacrifice for him, for a total enrichment for us as kids. I remember, and this isn't even car camping, but we were in the same place that we used to car camp. It's called Salt Fork, and it's in southern Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And we would always get a plot here and there to stay in a tent. But one weekend we decided we were going to get a hotel room at the. They had a cabin there. They had a whole resort there. It was a pool. It was like 40 different hotel rooms, whatever. It wasn't extravagant, but it was a little bit nicer than what we would typically
sitting and sleeping in a tent.
Exactly. And I'll never forget our family of 4 sleeping in this room, and the sliding door slightly opening quietly in the middle of the night.
No.
And we don't know what's going on. We just hear rustling in the corner. And my dad turns on the light, and there's a raccoon, right? There's a raccoon in the room, right? A raccoon. Because raccoons are relentless.
Oh,
they
man.
will go anywhere, whatever. And the problem was,
This
I
little
think, is
furry
we
bastard opened the door.
100%. And I think the problem is that we had a cooler full of whatever right
Hostess.
by the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Hostess.
Had to be.
It was right there, and the raccoon was in the room with us.
Little
right?
mother-
I remember.
little came right in.
Right. I was 9, and I looked up, and I saw a raccoon looking in my face. And my dad, bless his heart, wanted to protect us, and he threw like a fishing rod at it and whatever. The raccoon didn't care, of course.
Yeah.
The next thing my dad picked up in the right underneath the lamp in the drawer was a King James Version Bible.
The Gideons.
The
Thanks.
Gideons, baby.
Thanks, baby.
Whatever. He held in his hand, and my father, who is a Christian, took that Bible and threw the Word of
Let
God
it rip.
right at that raccoon. And I don't know if it was the physical Bible of the Word of God, divinity coming down upon that raccoon, but that raccoon scurried out.
He's like, yo, I'm out. Let me
He
get the
was
next
out.
one. I got the next one.
So even when you guys were in a hotel, quote unquote, right? Like you're still getting the nature coming.
Oh.
breaking it.
We were in a hotel. We paid
That's
for a
great,
hotel. Quadruple the price
That's so
of
funny.
car camping. We still had a raccoon. We had nature in the room.
That's great.
But what I'll never forget is that my dad it took whatever measure it took, even if it was the Word of God, throwing it at this raccoon. And, that's what a dad should do when
To
it
give
comes
you guys
to car
the
camping.
experience.
I think car
yeah.
camping has a lot to do with fatherhood and experience, and that's what I take away from it. I love it to this day, and it was a stepping stone into what we love.
Yep.
With backpacking.
Yeah.
And it's so funny you bring up that story because you weren't here last night, but last night we've got a bag outside from the remnants of our little peppies and our our food journey through yesterday evening. And I remember waking up early this morning to the sound of someone rummaging through that bag.
There's a hole.
Something. It was a raccoon, maybe the same raccoon from your hotel room, that was getting at the leftovers. But yeah, I mean, same thing. It's that this, us doing this and being out here is for me a proving ground and experimentation space for like what we can do when we're out there in the wild and out there in the woods and doing our thing. And like you said, Austin, when my kids are old enough and I can bring them out here and show them how to do the fire, show them how to do the food, and build that up in them. Because, for me, it wasn't like a core memory for me of like growing up and being out here and doing this. But now it is.
Yeah.
And I'd love for that to be a core memory for my kids.
I agree.
And making that a big thing for them.
I think that backpacking has been it's been such a hardcore I don't know. It's been so important to me, and that I think that car camping is a great introduction that I think that the 4 of us will bring in for our children, whether our parents did it for us or not.
Right.
Like for me, my parents, my father did for us, but I definitely know that for me, I'll want to introduce my kids into nature and to camping and backpacking through car camping.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to belittle it, and that's the whole point of this podcast, I think, is to not belittle someone who has an RV or who has a camper. It's exciting either way.
Whatever your version
Right.
of car camping is,
And
it's
there's
a
not
good way
one.
to do
There's
it.
not one type of camping or one type of like outdoorsy thing to do. It's the fact that you're out there doing something. I mean, we did a trip with our wives, and it was like, let's do something that, maybe less intense for us,
Yeah.
but allows us to bring somebody else
It's
in
an introduction.
who might not be as familiar and might not be
Right.
as in love with it as we are.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And
Yeah.
I think car camping allows for that. And it allows for you to play around with some stuff that you might not have thought of if you're just doing, backpack.
Yeah, and we'd love for you guys to email in and tell us your car camping stories. We've got the email set up. We've said before, trailtheorypod@gmail.com. Hit us up. Tell us about your stories. We'll talk about it on the podcast. And I think I'm ready for dinner.
I am 100% ready.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Get the steak and chips on this fire. We really appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. The Trail Theory Podcast is sponsored by Audimute and Audio Technica. Music by Dan Koch.